All right, well, good morning and welcome to Solutions for Success. I am Mark McGill. I'm the Director of Member Relations here at the Chamber. Happy New Year to you, and thank you for joining us today. We're so glad that you're here. We're going to talk about unleashing the power of Google Analytics today with the great folks from Pathfinders Advertising. Google Analytics is something you've probably heard the term before. And if you're like me, your eyes just kind of glass over and you have no idea what it really means. Well, Lucy McFarland's going to enlighten us with that today. So again, we are so glad that you are here. We cannot do the programs that we do here at the Chamber, like Solutions for Success, without great partners. And we really have a great one in Sim Financial. Evan Stark is here from Sim. When I think of members of our 1,300 members who really lean into their Chamber membership and lean into the Chamber, Sim Financial is right at the top. They are just a great partner of ours and bring you these Solutions for Success. So what does Sim Financial do? I think Evan Stark can tell us. Good morning, pal.
Hey, good morning, Mark. Thanks for the introduction and for the opportunity to partner with other businesses in our community. It's always cool to learn what people do. So glad to have Lucy here. And much like you, I don't know a lot about Google Analytics and have often pretended to know. So I would love to learn some more. Sim Financial Advisors is a regionally based but nationally recognized independent financial services firm. So we provide independent advice and asset management over approaching $4 billion that we manage on a discretionary basis. And then a number of financial planning services that range anywhere from private equity to equity compensation analysis, taxes, and estate planning. So all kinds of stuff for finance nerds to get into. We've got a team of 70 plus professionals with every kind of alphabet soup after their name. So if anybody's got a financial question, we're here to serve our community and happy to learn more alongside our chamber friends.
Great. Thanks again, Evan, and thanks for your great partnership. You really are a terrific partner of the Chamber. A little bit of housekeeping real quick. We've got some great events coming up as we're ready to kick off the new year. Our 2024 YPN Kickoff Power Lunch is January 23rd at Four Winds Casino. If you have young folks in your office, I cannot stress enough our YPN program, just phenomenal. Head to our website for more information. But the Power Kickoff Lunch is January 23rd. Intern 101, info about getting interns involved in your place of business. Kate Lee is our Director of Education and Workforce, and she's going to have two sessions here at the Chamber office, both on January 25th, one from 8:30 till 9:30 and one from 10:30 to 11:30. Just some info on our internship program. Now you can have interns help you this year and in turn help them, obviously. Third house meeting is January 26th at the History Museum. We'll get information on the Indiana General Assembly short session. We usually have 5 or 6 legislators there in kind of a town hall meeting type thing. It's just really informative of what's happening downstate at the State House. And then, of course, our first business after hours we're excited for is January 31st, 4 until 6 at the WNIT PBS downtown here. We're going to actually be in the television studio, which is really kind of fun. And it's their 50th anniversary. I think Big Bird looks pretty good for 50, but the 50th anniversary is actually the day of our business after hours. And you can sign up for that or any of the great events and find more information on our website, sbrchamber.com. We have a really exciting year planned with a lot of amazing things going on. So let's get to the main event here today. By the way, the Q&A feature is up. If you have any questions throughout the presentation today, make sure you just pop them in there, or the chat feature is also available, and I will be monitoring both of those. And now we're joined by the digital product manager at Pathfinders Advertising, Lucy McFarland. By the way, I suggest you go to their website, pathfind.com. You can play Frogger. The old video game Frogger is actually at the end of their website. I've been playing it for the past 25 minutes. Shh. And I'm still as bad at Frogger today as I was back when it came out. But great folks doing amazing things. My wife's company works with Pathfinders, and we're excited to have Lucy with us. Lucy, take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Mark, for that intro. I am so pleased to be here. This is, hopefully we won't need to take this full time, but let's keep this a conversation. So just like Mark said, feel free to input any comments or questions into the Q&A or the chat. The sharing on Zoom is a little funny, so if I miss it, Mark's going to help me make sure that we get your questions addressed. Otherwise, feel free to wait till the end, and we'll have, I think, plenty of time for a Q&A moment if you guys have questions you'd like to drill deeper into. But again, my name is Lucy McFarland. I'm going to lead this conversation. My role at Pathfinders Advertising is digital product manager. My original role at Pathfinders was data analytics manager. All of that just means that all of the digital things we can make and create at Pathfinders kind of come through me, and we make sure that they are of standards of excellence for both our clients and for what users expect to see and experience online. Within my decade of experience, I have worked on websites for B2B style clients, e-commerce style clients. So, and Google Analytics is part of my basically everyday work. So I am in and out of Google Analytics very often. But that being said, Google Analytics underwent a huge upgrade, a huge change within the last 2.5, almost 3 years. And Google Analytics 4 is sort of the name of the game. And I want to set up our conversation for today with hopefully a very clear expectation of what you will get out of our conversation this morning. My hope is that you will come out of this webinar feeling confident in the ways that you can leverage Google Analytics 4 to analyze the effectiveness of digital marketing efforts. So there's 3 things that I think are important to remember when we come to thinking about and leveraging Google Analytics 4. The first one, and this is critical, this is like one of the most important things I think, is before we even dive into Google Analytics or any other digital marketing tool for that matter, we need to start with your goals in mind. So what is the point of your website? Is your point of your website to drive leads for your business? Is the point of your website to just share information and generate content? So ensuring that you have your goals in mind and front of mind before you touch Google Analytics 4 is critical. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. The second thing I want you to keep in mind is Google Analytics 4 is a critical tool in your digital marketer tool belt. So being fluent in Google Analytics, namely Google Analytics 4, this is the landscape that we're in now, is critical to the success of your digital marketing efforts. And the third thing is this is just the beginning. So depending on your journey, your Google Analytics journey, if you've never touched it in your life, you're not even sure if you have it, that's okay. All the way through to you're in it every day, just like me, but you want to level up in your technical aptitude around Google Analytics 4. Hopefully I give you some samplings of things and some resources that will take you to the next level. So these are the 3 things that I'd like you to take away from today. And let's start with talking about why keeping goals at the forefront of your mind is important. Okay, this is a pretty bold statement, but my soapbox around this is data is useless without your why. So we have all probably heard the golden why, probably seen the TED Talk or hopefully read the book. But your why are your business and marketing goals. If you are unclear on those things, data out of Google Analytics 4 is not going to help you. It's just going to be data for data's sake. And that can muddy the waters and make things less clear on the direction to take. But if you start with your goals in mind, oh, I want my website to help me drive leads for my business. Leads could be, if you're B2B, it could be form submissions for people to get into contact with you or requesting some kind of a quote for you to exchange in some kind of transaction later. Or maybe your website is content-based and you want people to engage with your content so that they become regulars on your website. Thinking about what those bigger, broader goals are is going to be critical to the success of evaluating performance within Google Analytics. So that why is critical, but the next thing that's equally as important, and this is what I call the analyst equation, you're going to have data in whatever platform, doesn't have to be just Google Analytics 4, but GA4 data plus you are the critical component to this equation saying, so what? So we look at the data, there's lots of it, there's lots of pieces, some of it might be clear, some of it might be less clear, but the critical component here that's part of that why bigger picture is you. You get to say, okay, so we had 10,000 visitors in a year. so what? What does that mean? That so what is incredibly important to then drilling down and understanding what your insights are around your website performance. So you are the critical part of this equation. Google Analytics 4 isn't going to give you all the answers. Google Analytics 4 is going to give you a lot of the data, but it's your job to say why that data matters and what you're going to do differently now that you have it. Okay, so that's my soapbox, take it or leave it. But GA4, again, it's a critical tool in your digital marketer tool belt. You've got to be fluent in it. So I'm going to do my best to kind of set up key pieces I think are relevant in Google Analytics 4 that will give you at least a starting place, especially if you're newer early on in your Google Analytics 4 journey. But I want to set the stage just a little bit about Google Analytics 4. Google Analytics 4, GA4, I'll say GA4 going forward. That's kind of the acronym that we're using. GA4 is just the latest version of Google's universal analytics platform for websites. This was a critical update and upgrade that Google made in response to, and as digital marketers and business owners, it's important that you recognize this upgrade as necessary because there were all of those really, really big changes that operating systems, namely Apple was kind of the big kahuna and player in this game, saying they care more about user privacy. So user privacy is central to GA4 coming and being the upgrade and the landscape of website analytics going forward. But user privacy is the critical component here. And so third-party tracking and the mechanisms within those third-party tracking applications have a little less weight now because of operating systems like Apple's upgrades in the last 3 to 5 years. So GA4 is a response to that. And there are lots of folks who will go back and forth on this, but GA4 is built with those privacy protocols in mind. So it focuses on the activity that users do on your site rather than really focusing on the user themselves. So the types of things, the things they click on, the volume of that, all of that across mobile applications and desktop, your browser websites, Google Analytics 4 has kind of set the stage to say we can do tracking across those things in support of understanding the elements that users are engaging with most often. So this is a pretty drastic shift in the way that Google has decided to model and interpret user data for websites. And I want to set the stage here. This is like, you don't need to worry about this in your day-to-day, but this is the onus by which Google just said, okay, we've got to respond to these operating system changes in some shape or form. GA4 is the response to that. That's the TLDR on GA4. I wanted to share too, just to set the stage even further, that Google Analytics 4 can give you the same types of insights that you were capturing if you were leveraging Universal Analytics previously. Google Analytics 4 can still get you some of that information and help you find those answers. And again, you're the critical component to these insights. So just the smattering of those things, it's going to help you understand which content your audience is most engaged with on your website, where your users are coming from and landing on your website, right? Which search engines are they coming from? What other websites are they coming from before they get to my website? Whether your digital marketing campaigns are effective or not. So again, what are those sources? What are those ads users are coming from? And are they engaged with the content on my website? How well your lead generation efforts are working. It can tell you the effectiveness of that. It can also tell you your target audience demographics and whether or not your target audience is who you think they are based on demographic data that GA4 has. And then keyword information. So the types of organic or paid keywords, if you're running advertising or Google organic search engine traffic keywords, all of that is still available, readily available in GA4. None of that has gone away. If those are the types of things you are familiar with receiving in Universal Analytics versus GA4. So all of this is still readily available. And worthwhile to dig into and find. Of course, this upgrade comes with a new looking user interface, which honestly, it's streamlined. It looks much more beautiful. Universal Analytics is a little archaic looking at this point, especially in contrast to this new interface. But what GA4 does well is it's setting up widgets, data visualization widgets, so that you're not having to drill down and find that information for yourself too much. There's a lot of drilling down that you have to do in Universal Analytics, whereas in GA4, it's kind of serving that up, those visualizations up to you in a much more prominent way, which from a user perspective is really generous. But there are two like critical paths you can take to navigate to your website data in GA4. Those two paths are reports and explore, and I've got screenshots kind of showing you where those are in the navigation of GA4. Reports are the closest experience to the reports you are familiar with and know and have come to love in Universal Analytics. They are tables of information, they're line charts. So these are the default experience of Google website analytics. Again, the interface has changed slightly, so they may look a little bit different, but the way that they're set up should be very familiar to what you have come to love in Universal Analytics. They are Google's perspective of what they think are helpful metrics for you to evaluate the performance of your website. You may find some of those metrics more or less helpful, but this is just the default experience that Google is saying, hey, here's this information, it's in a table for you, take it or leave it. And those pre-built templates can be customized, so that's like leveling up later on in your Google Analytics experience and journey. There are lots and lots of great tutorials online, particularly YouTube, that can help you navigate that. But my ultimate recommendation is to just stick with the reports experience. The Explore side of GA4 is, if you're familiar with data visualization tools like Power BI, Tableau, Looker Studio by Google, it is their attempt to kind of Explore is their attempt to have something native in Google Analytics so that you can kind of unpack, drill down even further, and have a little bit more fun with the data visualizing rather than just sort of static reports that come out of the report section. But ultimately, and for the purposes of today's conversation, let's just focus on those default reports so that you can like hit the ground running after this conversation this afternoon, tomorrow, over the weekend, because I'm sure you all are touching Universal Analytics, Google Analytics over the weekend, of course. So let's talk about it. There are three reports that I would recommend, three report buckets that I would recommend you dive into and leverage regularly. The first one is your acquisition bucket. This is the space where you will come to understand how your website visitors found you and your website. The second one is the engagement bucket. This is going to tell you on your website what content your visitors like, what pages are they visiting, how long they're staying on the site. And then the third bucket that I like is the user section. This is the who of who is visiting your website. This is lots of demographic information, basic demographic information, but just like lots of categories. So that would be gender, age, state, country, all that good stuff, device type, all of that. So it's who, but it's not the individual who. It is a generalized modeled version of the types of folks that are visiting your site. So let's dive in just a little bit further. In the acquisition report, a couple of the things that you'll be able to easily find and distill in the report, the default report experience that's available to you, are the traffic sources that your website visitors are coming from. So whether that's search engines, other websites, organic channels, all of that is available in these reports. And this setup should ring familiar to what you have come to know and love in Universal Analytics. The metrics may look a little bit different, but they are, for all intents and purposes, virtually the same. And the way that Google has categorized and continues to categorize the traffic sources is the same as your previous experience. So a lot of this should hopefully look familiar, which should make this transition and your use of GA4 a little less intimidating. Other things that are going to come out of these reports that if you are a regular user of Google Analytics, or sometimes in there on our spectrum of user usage, how long your visitors may have stayed on your website by traffic source, and then the percent of folks that engaged with content. They have an engagement rate proportion here, again, by traffic source. And the reason that this report, and from my perspective, is beneficial is these reports can help you understand your target audience just a little bit more, especially their digital preferences. So the search engines that they navigate through, websites that they came from to navigate to your content. This is critical information to help you understand and decide where to place potentially advertising or generate more organic content. This is a great space to understand that if your organic social traffic stays on your website for longer than your organic search engine traffic, if you're putting out content on Facebook, on Instagram, or TikTok, or Threads, or whatever, and you're seeing that those folks are really well engaged with your website content, or they generate lots of leads on your website, that would be a trigger to say, oh gosh, let's increase our organic social content creation, because we know that this audience is receptive to, one, what we're putting out on those organic channels, and then two, when they get to our website, they're really well engaged. That's telling me that this is a quality channel for me and my purposes. That is the why, right? So all of these numbers are great. These are lots of data points, but ultimately, what am I going to do differently knowing this information? Because I've got my big compass, my why of I need to drive leads, or I want to increase revenue, whatever those big goals are, these data points need to help me ladder up to those things. So the acquisition report is a great way to understand where your audience is coming from and those digital preferences that they have across the internet. On the engagement report, this is for your website specifically. So engagement is a great place to understand what it is about my website that my target audience likes or dislikes. So depending on the results that you see in these reports, some of the the volume of folks of users or views, page views for people that land on specific pages, the number of users that have viewed that content, how long they may engage on the page, whether they engage, whether they've clicked on certain page elements. All of those numbers will be available to you in the engagement reports bucket. Likewise, you'll be able to attribute folks that visit specific pages to lead generation activity, so the conversion activity. Mark, do we have a question?
We do, Lisa. A couple,
Awesome.
Lucy.
Okay.
One,
Yeah.
where is it showing what search engine they are coming from? I do not see this on the report.
If you are in the traffic acquisition report, and if you scroll down a little bit to this table in your Google Analytics experience, the default session channel group is a great drop-down, and you can change that drop-down to tell you and display the data a little bit differently. But organic search will tell you that they're using things like Google or Bing or Yahoo to navigate to your site. Paid search would be if they're leveraging Google Ads to get to your site, or Bing Ads. Referral would be a bucket for folks where they're coming from websites like weather.com or Facebook or things like that. Organic social would be those channels where we're saying they're coming from, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, things like that. So certainly the acquisition report in that bucket, traffic acquisition, would be the perfect report.
So can you tell how much came from Google or Bing specifically?
Yes. Yep. This is a great little drop down where it says session default channel group. If you click on that, there'll be a few options for you to click on source, and source will tell you exactly which search engine it would be or other traffic source.
All right. Hope that helps, Julie. If not, let us know. What is the difference between the average engagement time on this acquisition page and the average engagement time per session?
So average engagement time per session in this acquisition bucket is saying for this channel, this group of users from this traffic source spend approximately 22 seconds on your website. So that's saying that they have clicked on something, viewed a page, done a couple of things, that those folks have engaged with your content in some shape or form for this X amount of time. In the engagement report, that's the same thing, but within the bucket of, on this page specifically, the visitors that came to this page engaged with the content here for X amount of time. Is that helpful? Help clarify?
I think that answers for now. Thanks.
Okay. Awesome. Great questions. This engagement report section, these reports are going to help you understand when your target audience lands on your website. It's going to help you understand what their content preferences are, which, again, if we're thinking about our compass behind us, saying, hey, our big why is generate leads, increase traffic, whatever those things are, this is going to help you generate more content that is well suited to this target audience based on what they previously engaged with well. So if you see folks visiting one of your pages, there's a high volume of folks, the time on the page is really positive, that average engagement per session is really high. Those are things that are going to tell you that that content is working. So that means, how can I replicate the success of this content and do it again? So this is forward thinking, but the insight there would be, wow, what is it like? How can I determine what should I do to replicate this content to keep serving it up to my target audience so that they continue to find value in what I'm offering in this digital space on my website? So this report section should enable your ability to develop even more great content, or contrast to that, move away from content that you've been creating previously, right? Almost pivot, say, oh, okay, none of our content or this type of content isn't working for our audience. They're not as engaged with it as I had thought. Great. Move on, try something different, see how people respond. And this is the report space that's going to help you do that. More questions?
Yes.
Yeah,
More
great.
questions.
Yeah.
We use a proprietary software package for our website email distribution and registration for events. Does Google Analytics give insight no matter what the website program is?
Yes, and there's a couple caveats there. So depending on what your solution is, most applications, software applications like that, do have pretty basic integrations with Google Analytics. But yes, if you are using that tool specifically, say for email, and you're generating email, and that email has links back to your website, absolutely, Google is going to parse that and say that this is that email referral is coming through. And for your purposes, while you're poking around in Google Analytics, what I will throw out there and say is, and I don't go into great detail here, but one thing to make note of, everyone, is if you are leveraging social and email channels and you're directing users to your website, I would highly recommend you all leverage UTMs. UTMs are urchin tracking methods or mechanisms. I can't remember what the M stands for, but it's just a unique URL that includes parameters that help parse through and tell Google where exactly your users came from. And that's really beneficial for content that you create. So we can dive into that a little bit further at the end, but write down UTM and Google it later, and start leveraging that just to make your Google Analytics for reports even more specific about where your users are coming from and how those users engage with your content. Okay, I'll keep moving, but we can unpack that even further in a little bit. So the third report section that I highly recommend to leverage and leverage regularly is the user section. So this is the who is visiting your website. It's not individual users. It's kind of the generalized bucket. But this is a lot of basic demographic data. You can see on the right in the image, those broader buckets of information, demographic information about your website visitors, total number of visitors by country, region. Region is like states, city, language is another one, age, gender, and interests. So Google, as the Google brain, is able to extrapolate the types of other websites and content that users are ingesting and give it to you in buckets like home improvement and things like that. So all of that is incredibly beneficial. And it'll tell you things like, what proportion of folks are visiting your website from their phone, their mobile device, what browser they're coming from. And the reason that these reports are beneficial, especially again, if we're thinking about our big why, the reason that these reports are beneficial is it's going to give you a clearer picture of your target audience, which, well, let's circle it right back around. This is going to give you direction on creating the right content for your target audience, placing it on the right platforms, and ensuring that your website is meeting their device standards. So if you have a lot of people coming to your website from a mobile device, but your website doesn't look that great on a mobile device, or it's not mobile accessible, oh, they're not going to engage as well with your website content because it's going to be literally difficult to use on a phone. So that would be, oh gosh, we got to pivot and start thinking about making our website more mobile friendly because the majority of our visitors are coming from their phone. That's a critical, huge pivot to do, and is important to make sure that you're continuing to offer value to your target audience. So this demographic report, this space in Google Analytics 4, again, should feel pretty familiar to Universal Analytics, but it's going to give you the right direction to take when it's time to make improvements on your website or review performance. So to recap, the 3 report buckets that I recommend you start using and using regularly are acquisition, engagement, and the user buckets. Acquisition is how your website visitors found you. And these reports can help you understand your target audience, their digital preferences, like what search engines and other websites they're coming from. And then that's going to help you decide where to place potentially advertising or increase your organic content creation based on the success of that acquisition. In your engagement report, this is on your website, what content your visitors likes and is well engaged with, is generating leads. These reports are going to help you understand your target audience even further, as well as their content preferences. So the things that you're offering and adding value to them, which is going to help you continue to make the right content going forward so that you're continually on their mind, and that the content you continue to offer them is of value. Finally, in that user bucket, this is the who is visiting your website. This is going to help you hone in on a clearer picture of your target audience. You're going to create the right content, put it on the right platforms, and make sure that your website is meeting those standards that all website visitors have. We all do this. We've come to expect a good website experience. And this report is going to help you hone in on what those takeaways could be. To level up your GA4 configuration, one of the nice things that Google has done in the admin section of GA4 is kind of give you this checklist. It's a setup assistant. I would highly recommend, if you haven't already, check it out and follow it. Fill it out, like complete that setup assistant. Google is in love with itself. And if you can integrate with other Google tools, which the setup assistant will prompt you to do, it's gonna favor you. Almost like the social media feed algorithm, right? Like when you do the right things, but those platforms are gonna favor you in that way. So I highly recommend you check that out, just to level up your GA4 data collection. But a couple other things I want to mention is there is the custom report setup. The library is critical. I showed you all of those reports, but you can actually edit and customize them to your needs, so that when you do approach it on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, it has what you need ready to go. So there's plenty of customizing that's available. So I would encourage you to explore that further. Another tool that has kind of changed the game in the last 5 or 6 years is Google Tag Manager. This is sort of a low-code option that Google has made available for you to increase your performance tracking mechanisms across your website, to increase the types of data points that come through to Google Analytics 4. We could have a whole other webinar that would last many more hours on the effectiveness and efficacy of Google Tag Manager. I highly recommend you look into that if you're not already leveraging it. Google Search Console. Oh my gosh, if you're a local business, create a Google Search Console account and connect it to your Google Analytics 4. Google Search Console is your Google organic search engine result page like hub. It will offer you like a more robust reporting experience for your organic search engine results. Google Ads. If you all are leveraging Google Ads, be sure to integrate it with your GA4 experience with your account. Google Ads, probably, if you have an account, it probably was prompting you to do this. It may have been the first place that you had been prompted to manage your GA4 upgrade. So certainly get that connected. If you're running ads through Google, it's critical that you connect it to your GA4. It's just going to make your data collection much more robust and thorough. If you're using any content management systems like WordPress, even on the bottom here, your sales or marketing management systems like HubSpot, Marketo, Salesforce, all of those big guys have lots of really great mechanisms to help you integrate your GA4 property with those tools. So absolutely explore those and make sure you're taking full advantage of those integrations that are available to you through your subscriptions. So I'm going to wrap that up. All that to say, this, I'm being so cheesy, but your analytics journey starts now. You are going to start with your goals in mind. You know that GA4 is a critical tool to use as a digital marketer when it comes to evaluating your website's performance and how it's benefiting, again, your business goals. And so this is the start. Like, those 3 reports are the places to be at a minimum when you're evaluating your website performance. So dive in, poke around. You're not going to break anything when you're poking around in GA4. So just dive in and click around and start familiarizing yourself with those data points and what those reports are available to you. And that being said, on the spectrum of experience, if you've got very little experience to no experience with Google Analytics, I highly recommend you just lean into what Google makes available to you and Google Analytics Academy. They have a very robust Google Analytics 4 training via Skillshare. So go for it, do it. Spend a little bit of time running through those things. It will be in much greater detail of where to click for certain types of things across all the reports that are available in Google Analytics 4. So be sure to take advantage of that, and it's free. But if you're ready to like level up and kind of take off in your Google Analytics 4 website tracking and performance and beyond, a creator that I really, really love and even use almost weekly. I use their content regularly. Analytics Mania. They have a YouTube channel. They've got all sorts of resources. Their content is fabulous. So I highly, highly recommend you look into Analytics Mania. They have so many great things, even beginner level stuff, but I love their resources for a little bit more rigorous and technical Google Analytics 4 and Google Tag Manager resources. So highly recommend you just dive in. Again, poke around, just get in there, familiarize yourself with clicking around in Google Analytics 4. You're not going to hurt anything. It doesn't go back to your website. It's just sitting in Google Analytics 4. So play around with it and have some fun. Before we start more Q&A and more conversation, I would be remiss if I didn't give a plug for Pathfinders Advertising. So I just want to briefly share a little bit more about Pathfinders Advertising. Mark had kind of hinted it at the top, but we have been in business for nearly 45 years. We're going on 45 years this year. And the Ball family started Pathfinders 44 years ago. We are over 60 plus people in the organization. And in Indiana, we have a couple years of Best Place to Work awards, which is great, and I can affirm. And we're actually like fully remote. So we have team members across the country, namely Massachusetts, Florida, Michigan, lots here locally, but we are remote. We are namely because we have clients all over the country too. So we have a nationwide client roster, handful of clients that even are abroad, but our fully remote lifestyle, work lifestyle at Pathfinders lends itself well to this nationwide roster. The proportion of the types of businesses and verticals that we support with marketing and advertising strategy, we are a full service agency, so we can kind of do it all. But financial products and services, we do healthcare, B2B, and consumer CPG, consumer packaged goods. Namely, like we have a cat litter company that we use. It's so fun. We don't use, they are our client. So I want to make sure I give a shout out to Pathfinders, and I've got my information here, and then Vicki Holland, who is our Chief Growth Officer, formerly CEO of Pathfinders. And I've got her information here. If you ever want to chat with us about working with us, we would love that. We're a full service agency, website development, direct mail development, creative development, brand archetype work, all sorts of stuff. We love a challenge. So reach out to us if you could use some marketing and advertising support.
Another question, Lucy. Diving into
Please.
analytics can be a rabbit hole for small teams. What is
Yeah.
your recommendation for a minimum amount of time, frequency of days, hours, etc., to level up and begin to make effective improvements?
It's almost if you could make I was about to say if you could make a daily practice happen, but the daily practice could be less than 5 minutes. Just go in and click around. So it sounds silly and trite, but just familiarizing yourself with the interface can make those reports feel less overwhelming because you're like, oh, I've seen those words before. I've seen those numbers before. The other thing that's really great about Google Analytics is you can have it spit out and email PDFs to you at regular intervals for any of the reports that are there. So I look into that. And if that's something that like Monday morning, you're sipping your coffee, you just went through your like hundreds of emails and you're so over it, you want a brain break, but it's a different kind of brain break, review the report that came in your email from Google Analytics and say, okay, what does this mean? And you could mark it up and make some notes. But I highly recommend just diving in, but making it small bites, to your point. But that frequency of doing that is going to help it feel less overwhelming and less intimidating when you touch it more often. I hope that's helpful.
If you want to report on how engaged people are or how much time on average people are spending on your website overall, would it be better to use average engagement time or average engagement time per session?
I would say average engagement time per session, because then that just gives you a sense of across the amount of time and all of the types of engagement metrics, or excuse me, elements. It'll give you a broader sense of what they're doing and why they did it. That'd be good.
All right, thank you on that. Any other questions? This has been amazing, Lucy. We've had some great questions and quite a few people on. You really have enlightened us. Again, Lucy put up her information. Go to pathfind.com for more information on them. And again, make sure there's the information again. Make sure you play Frogger at the end. 980 is my score, by the way. If you can beat that, let me know. Thank you so much.
2530, Mike, Mark. I've been waiting the whole time. I have it written down. 2530. So yeah, thank you for that.
Well, I can't break 1,000, so
probably should have waited till the end to tell me that. Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you, Lucy, and incredible engagement from everybody.
Couple more questions quickly, Lucy. Since we have time, can we talk a little bit about UTMs?
Oh, yes. Okay. I will actually maybe even after this, because I is the idea that we'll share this deck as a PDF with everybody.
We're going to share the recording, and then we've had a couple questions about your slides. So if you could share the deck, that'd be amazing too. Just reach out to Amanda and she can make that happen.
Absolutely. And what I'll do is I'll even throw a slide here into the deck with some UTM basic information and resources, my preferred resources. So again, UTM stands for, and I hope maybe somebody will Google this while we're talking, but I'm fairly certain it's urchin tracking method or mechanisms. So if any of you have been on, say, Instagram or Facebook, and you have clicked on an ad because you're like, oh gosh, that pair of shoes is so cute, I want to look at those and put them in a cart. If you are paying close attention, especially if you're on your like computer, it's a little less obvious on your phone because when you navigate to a website, when you see the URL, it's chock full of information. So what a UTM is and does is it transforms your URL with extra dimensions and attributes that qualify you as an individual user about where you're coming from and what digital marketing campaign maybe you have run and are tying this advertisement to. It doesn't have to be ads, it can be organic content too. But anytime you are directing a user to your website from something very intentional as part of a broader campaign, I highly recommend you leverage UTMs. But say you're on zappos.com and you came from Facebook and you're like, oh my gosh, this pair of shoes is really cute. Next time you're on an e-commerce website, they do this a lot. Look at your URL. You'll notice it's giant. Like there are lots of letters in this giant URL. You'll actually start to see words. One of those words is source. Another word is medium. And then a couple other ones might be campaign, and another one would be ad content. And what we as digital marketers have done is dictate what those values become. So I get to tell Google how to parse and interpret where my user came from via a UTM. They are incredibly beneficial. The joke is that UTMs are kind of the big brother. That's how we understand where you're coming from, what you clicked on, and how it is traced back to your campaigns, your marketing campaigns. So next time you're like, you click on an ad and you go to a website, look at that URL and you're going to see lots and lots of information. And if it doesn't have it, then they missed the boat. They're doing it wrong. But UTMs are pretty great. So definitely look into those. That was my long-winded response of UTMs are great. I should have included that.
And again, Julie, we'll make this deck shareable as well as the full recording of this. So
Absolutely.
Somebody else said, how are UTMs created?
Yes. Google actually has a great tool. It's the I'll link it when I share the deck. I'll have a link to that for you. They have a great little it's like a little form. So you say, you'll say the URL of your website that you want people to land on, and then you'll fill out the little form fields that will tell Google how to interpret it. So you'll enter your campaign, say it's awareness campaign 2024, and then you want the ad content to be creative version number 2. So that when you go back into Google Analytics and you're looking and digging into those reports, you'll actually be able to see that information very specifically and see the number of users that came through on that URL, UTM URL, and whether they were engaged or not, just based on all those metrics that we talked about previously. So there's literally like a great little form that Google makes for you to leverage. And I highly recommend keeping kind of an archive of those UTMs you generate. It could be a spreadsheet, Google Sheet, whatever you want, Word doc, doesn't matter, but just to help you keep a record of all of those different UTMs you generate for your campaigns.
Can you also share where to learn more about the UTMs?
Absolutely. Yep. Lots of great content about UTMs on the interwebs.
Thank you, Natalie. I had a question up here. Let's see. Hold on. Keeps we had quite a few. What would you say are the top 5 most important metrics to report weekly?
Okay. Let me go on my soapbox really quick. The combination of metrics will depend on your goals, right? So my top 5 favorite might be a little bit different than your top favorite based on your business objectives. But if we are going to just be really general, the other thing I want to say is there's not one metric to rule them all. It's always the combination of them, and then you saying, okay, but so what? Users is critical. You got to know the volume of folks that are coming to your site. That's important just to like get a sense of what kind of visibility is your brand capturing. Engagement rate, bounce rate, they're one and the same. That metric is also important because if it sits on the higher side, that means the content you're serving up or the way that you've served up or set up your website is not resonating with folks that are landing on it. So users, engagement rate, engaged by session is important. I would also say conversions. So if you do any kind of lead generation activity, that's probably like, if there was one metric to rule them all, conversions would be critical. So certainly that would be important. Events is another one that's great. And if events would be those like CTA button clicks or PDF downloads, any kind of like extra elements beyond a page view that you have been very specific about creating in your website experience, keeping a pulse on that would be really important. Because if you see any fluctuations there that are higher peaks or low valleys, there might be something about your website experience from a technical perspective that needs addressing or things like that. I think I'll stop there because that's plenty to kind of keep a pulse on week over week.
I said very helpful. Thank you.
Great question.
Yeah, great questions. Really great, great hour. Lucy, thank you so much for your expertise, and you've really given us some great things to learn about. Again, there's Lucy's information. If you need to get a hold of her, she can answer any other questions. We'll make the deck shareable. We'll have the recording available. And if you need anything from us on the membership side, please get a hold of me. And of course, sbrchamber.com is the website for any of our events and to get signed up for those. And we look forward to seeing you there. This was really fantastic, Lucy. Thank you for your time and all the great information. We appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you again, Evan, for from Sim Financial for making this possible. We really do appreciate all that you do. Quickly, a little plug for how we get a hold of you.
Sure thing. Yeah. So my office is in Mishawaka, so we're local. If you need a physical place to go to, you can reach me at eStark. So that's E, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, A-R-K at SYM as in Mike.com. So eStark@sim.com, or find me through the chamber.
Great. And thank you for your partnership again. Thank you all for attending and for your support of the chamber. We really appreciate you. Look for our next session here coming up in sometime next month. We'll have that on the website as well. Hope to see you at some of our events, and stay safe this weekend. If you believe the guys on the radio and the TV, and a lot of those guys can't be trusted, trust me. We're in for a good old winter weekend. So enjoy it, be safe. Thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you soon. Appreciate you all. Thanks.